Good morning. Welcome to the continuation of our meeting of House Revenue. We've really got this one bill we for sure want to finish up. This Senate seems awful loud. Am I getting feedback, or you guys hear me back there? Senate File 54. And just if somebody is new here today or just zooming in, we took public comment on the bill, closed public comment, and then we started working the bill. And members, and we might refresh each other's memory on this, but basically we ended yesterday at a percentage, and it's a 2-year deal and a non-application deal is where we're at, and we're still working. So that's where we're going to continue that discussion. Okay. Is there any, okay, and I think we're good. Any other questions? Everybody agree with that? Ms. Jeffrey, we're all good? Okay. So let's continue where we, oh yeah, we got to take roll. It's a little thing. Okay, Ms. Jeffrey, my apologies. Can you please take roll?
Certainly. Representative Bear.
Here.
Representative Byron.
Here.
Representative Locke.
Present.
Representative Northrup.
Here.
Representative Oakley. Representative Storer.
Here.
Representative Strzok.
Here.
Representative Swanitzer. Yes, sir. Chairman Harshman. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, members, I'm just gonna, let's just start back into this bill, and let's just kind of start at the beginning again and kind of review. We had some discussion there about outbuildings and amounts and those kind of things. We're just gonna keep working through this. I think we'll finish up here for long and hopefully kick this bill out and get it on the floor. Okay, any thoughts on? And I'll just say, if you recall back, remember this bill, when it left the joint committee, it had 26% or 28.6% and a $200,000 cap. And then the Senate just put it to a dollar amount. And I think if I recall right, it seemed like that, with that 26% not to exceed 200,000, that'd go up to about a $790,000 home or something like that, would get the full 200,000 exemption, and then it would be lower based on that percentage. That's how the bill came out as a joint committee bill. Okay, as it sits today now, I think it's sitting at, did we amend it successfully to 25% on line 7? These two, I'm getting a head nod from the A team. It passed. Okay. Any more thoughts or amendments on that?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment. I sent it to you and it's being printed right this morning, but I can talk through it if you'd like. Thank you, sir. So I gave this some more thought yesterday about who we're trying to help, what we're trying to do here. And I came up with an idea that I think will allow us to do something that is focused, but also broad enough that it makes sense. And what I came up with was the idea of limiting not the actual exemption, but the amount of fair market value that it gets applied to. And what that allows for is, and I just picked $3 million as the fair market value. It's worth noting that we're going to apply this across the board, at least to residential structures. I've got in the amendment also is mirroring the House Bill 45 language in terms of what it applies to in the second year, so we can be consistent, given that that came out of Senate revenue last night. So the idea here is that you can get an exemption of 25% up to $3 million in fair market value. So that's essentially at the statewide level, that's almost $4,900. But in Teton County, it's closer to $4,000 because of our lower mill levy. But if your house is more than $3 million, you stay at that level. So again, these are second homeowners. These are people who have bought homes. These are people who also, in many cases, make a lot of effort to at least not live in their other states. And so they're saving on taxes as a result of that. I think what this does is it allows us to give a bigger increase to people on the lower end without breaking the state bank. And Mr. Chairman, you and I had talked about also the idea of what the backfill would be for not just the counties, but the schools. So I wanted to take that into effect. And so as a result, I thought this was a fair way to go about it, so that for folks that really do own a house that's over $3 million in value, that we would limit what they would still get a break. They just wouldn't get as big of a percentage break as everyone else. So, and we're still, my assessor is helping me kind of come up with what the fiscal note is. That's actually it was on the second sheet of Lily, that was on the second sheet of the spreadsheet, if that's not quite here. There's a sheet too that just had some calculations, but I think it keeps this in that kind of 125 million arena that we were looking at before. If you look at the spreadsheet.
Did you get I mean, I've got numbers on the 25% exemption with no cap is about 160 million, the cost of it. You have a cap at 3 million.
Mr. Chairman, so I think the 160 is if you're applying it to total tax paid versus residential structure. And that's what's on the other sheet that didn't quite get printed out. But that difference is, according to the handout that LSO handle that Representative Nicholas gave us, the total tax paid in the state of residential property tax in last year was 643 million and some change. The number for total tax paid on residential structures was 477.5. So originally I was applying the 25%.
That's
To-
right.
to
And
that
just to the
number.
residents, not any outbuildings or land.
Right, right.
So and you're exactly right. I think that 160 number, mine includes the land and the outbuildings.
Right.
Okay? So your proposed amendment is in front of us here then, folks. So do you want to move that amendment?
I would like to move that amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second for discussion here. My first question, just on the amendment, line 11 and 12, exemption of $3 million to the fair, 25% not to exceed $3 million. So what's the top end home there? What is that? Is that $12 million home?
A top home in Teton County?
No, I mean this language right here. Does this go up to 12 million? Is that what that is? Or am I reading that wrong? It says 25% not to exceed $3 million.
Of, Mr. Chairman, of fair market value. So let's look at the spreadsheet
Okay,
that kind of gives you an idea of how this would work. And the first set of numbers on the top of the page uses the state average mill levy, and the second set on the bottom of the page just uses the Teton County levy because they're a little bit different, and it kind of has a meaningful difference there because our mill levy is much lower. But what you can see here is, for example, a $300,000 house. If you go all the way across, they were paying in 2023, they paid about $1,960. This would drop their new tax to $1,470, and they get about a $500, which again is the 25%. You go to a $800,000 house, and they get about a $1,300 savings. But then you get to 3 million, they're paying, their tax they paid in 2023 was about $23,000. They would pay about $18,000 and get about $5,000 of a savings. But that same $5,000 would then be applied to any house that's worth more than $3 million. So a $10 million house that pays about $65,000 would pay about $60,000. So they'd still get a break. It just wouldn't be a huge break. And as we know, and this would apply statewide. In Teton County, that $10 million house is actually paying about $54,000 in taxes and would end up at about $50,000. So the idea is we're not going to break the state bank. We're still going to collect a reasonable amount of sales tax. Part of my, or property tax, excuse me, part of my goal is I really don't want to incentivize more people to buy a home in Teton County. That's a $6 million home. That just makes it harder for us to have affordable housing. And we've seen a lot of that going on in the last couple of years. So those folks will still be paying a good chunk of change, but they're going to get a break too. So that's the concept there. And by applying the limit to the fair market value rather than the exemption itself, we're able to help the folks that we were talking about yesterday who are, in these $1 million homes, modest $1 million homes.
Okay, I'm going
Thank
to
you.
open this up for questions, discussion. Representative Northrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we get a guesstimate on what the backfill will be?
Go ahead, Representative Storr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if it's just residential structure, let's pull that. Assessor Schinkel is sending me some numbers just as we speak, so I haven't. I took a guesstimate of, the issue is to try to figure out how much of the total property tax paid would come under the 25% and how much would come under the 3 million limit. So she's actually sent me a text that will tell me that. I took a guess, and I think it looked like the fiscal note was in about 110 million, a little under 110 million total, including backfilling the school foundation for 1 year,
Okay.
applied to just residential structure.
And we had, just thinking about this bill back as a committee bill, it was 28 or whatever, up to 200,000. And that was about 120 million, I think. So it's a similar, a little bit less, actually, the committee bill we had. Okay, Representative Byron has.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what my good neighbor is trying to communicate is the fear of a flat 25% would be incentivizing out-of-state investors because they will have a fixed number and know exactly what their tax will be, and they will look at these homes that are valuable, and some are, yes, some are 7, 8, 9, 20 million, some are 1.5 million. And it'll incentivize them to come buy and hold and not even occupy them. So on and for this amendment, I think it solves one of the problems we had with the flat 25%. And I think it's it's a great step forward to keep this bill fluid and working, and also remembering that, you know, this is not currently permanent.
Well, and I think that's an issue we want to be really careful about. I mean, as the 67th is just about done, our work, and so as the new legislature will take over the 68th. And once you start these things, they're pretty hard to turn off. And I think we got to be really careful. And I think, because this isn't reform, you know, this is not reform, and I don't think you want to start, we got to be really careful. I think House Bill 52 was a one-year deal, I think, and that would incentivize the 68 to actually, you know, get back to work, keep working on this. But that's my comments on it. But okay, I'm going to move down to this end. Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the bringer. We had quite a bit of debate yesterday about removing mobile homes, and this here amendment puts them back in. So is there any concern about mobile homes being a problem since they're more of a personal property issue as far as how the assessors take care of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Barrett. I asked LSO to model the language that was in House Bill 45, so we could be consistent. And so that's what this reflects, without the outbuildings in place, because I think that was taken out of the bill yesterday. I would defer to other experts on whether we should have mobile homes in there or not. I think they're still paying property tax if they own the land, right? So I think that would still be consistent, but I'm open to that debate.
I think some of the question yesterday was about administering mobile homes, and maybe if an assessor, director, or former assessor, director, I say be careful coming to a meeting, you might have to testify. But I think that administration piece, if we clear up, that's how I remember it yesterday, but go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so early on, as the Revenue Committee was speaking about property tax relief, I think that the conversation was just related to their homes. We were trying to identify homes. We know that we have folks that live in mobile homes, and I think that that's why in all of those discussions, we included mobile homes. And now, when we have another concept that's out there about exempting personal property, that's where this is becoming more of a confusion here on which exemption would be applicable. And so had it not been for the discussion about exempting personal property, I think including mobile homes in this tax relief is appropriate.
Our question, Representative Bear, follow up on that, and then I'll go to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, kind of creates more questions. So I'm envisioning owning a mobile home and the property underneath it. I would get a property tax bill, as the Vice Chair mentioned, for that land, but then I would get a personal property bill for the mobile home. This bill here, this legislation we're talking about, would apply to the land under my mobile home, even if it's listed as, qualifying. There is no property tax bill for that other than the personal property tax. Or would this bill say, we're going to apply this to your personal property tax bill? If we include the word mobile home, would that be interpreted as, we're going to go over here to your personal property tax bill and apply this exemption to that? If you could just explain to me how you would handle that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question, Representative Bear. Most of our mobile homes in the state of Wyoming are in mobile home parks. They don't own the land that's underneath them. As including the mobile home in this definition, yes, we would apply that homestead exemption to that mobile home because that's what this exemption states. in those situations where you've got the mobile home and then you've got the land. If the mobile home is still a titled mobile home, you're absolutely correct in that that would be a separate assessment schedule. We still are picking that up as a titled mobile home, so we can still apply that homestead exemption to it, even if it's on the land. Now, you're right, we're gonna have a separate assessment schedule for the land and any other structures that are out there. Those are going to have to be handled by each assessor individually when they identify. Most assessors, I would believe, have, because it's improved land. If I've got a rural property, I've got a titled mobile home, I've got land, I'm capturing this infrastructure of a well and a septic and those types of things. So there are some ways that county assessors can look at their data, but I believe it's still, under the way this is listed, you're still only going to be entitled to one. You're not going to be able to have the homestead exemption on the mobile home and on the land that exceeds the whatever is decided, the 200,000 total or the 25% up to $1 million. To me, you're just going to have the one for that one homestead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow-up. So just looking at it from an assessor's standpoint, would it be simpler to strike mobile homes from this exemption for homeowners and then go ahead and pass 68, which would apply to the mobile home itself? From an assessor's standpoint, would it be simpler to have, okay, any mobile home out there has this exemption and single-family structures has this other exemption over here?
Mr. Chairman, it really depends on how the final language is in those bills. If the exemption on personal property continues at 20,000, then you're limiting that mobile home just up to 20,000, where this bill is, 25% up to. 20,000 may be a bigger tax cut for a mobile home than 25% up to 3 million. This is where we're getting multiple exemptions that are applicable to the same properties. So the other piece of that is, again, I'm trying to foresee how these bills are going to come out of committee. This does have a repealer. The personal property bill, as it sits, doesn't have a repealer. A lot of moving parts here. And the personal property bill, as I understand it, is really geared more towards that business, personal property, furniture, fixtures, equipment. So I don't know how that bill is going to play out in the end as well. So I really don't know how to answer your question. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. And maybe we need to hear from the assessors as well. As it gets complicated in our minds and whatnot, it seems to me, one of the things I'm interested in is streamlining this, especially we're talking about this being limited time. So I'm getting to the place, so I'd like to hear from you, where we just include mobile homes in this, and then make it easy, straightforward to administer. Everybody gets it. People in mobile homes get it. And then I guess I'm getting less interested in separating it out via tangible personal property at all. So if you would talk to that about the administration of mobile homes, it seems to me that I heard that there are some nice mobile homes out there that are high, valued and really no reason to pull them out.
Go ahead.
And one thing, so Mr. Chairman, Representative Oakley, if we were to streamline this and just have it be towards the single-family residents and not worry about the land on any of those things, I think you're right, we could address it here. When we get to the personal property bill, it could be a situation where we eliminate the confusion by, in that exemption, not including mobile homes that are titled under Title 31. So if you turn to our statutes and you read the exemption that is for personal property held and used for personal use, you'll find that there's an out there for mobile homes. This does not include mobile homes that are titled under Title 31. If you want to address business personal property in the exemption bill in 68, you may want to just, this exemption is not applicable to titled mobile homes. Then they're only applicable to this bill, and it reduces some of that confusion.
That's a good point. And if we get to that bill, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of horses still out there running, and that one's not quite even running yet. And so we gotta, so let's really make this one as good as we can, not assuming some other bill will pass. Okay, go ahead, Assessor. Any thoughts on administration of mobile homes?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to comment. Dixie Huxtable, Converse County Assessor and Vice Chair Oakley. We do have a lot of mobile homes out there that are not on mobile home parks, that are on the land. Sometimes they're not on the land they own. They own the mobile home, but the land is somebody else's. And so that just adds an additional complication when you put associated land on the tag. As far as administering it for mobile homes, I don't see that it's a problem leaving it in here for just a mobile home. That exemption, whatever you decide to do, a percent or a dollar amount is going to apply to that. We call it an M account for a mobile home. That's what they're on, because they're in our real appraisal system, but they are certainly distinguished as a personal property. We have mobile homes in excess of a couple $100,000 that are sitting out there, typically not in a mobile home park, but they're out on land. So I don't see that it's a problem to do it. The problem for us arose between the two bills.
Right.
That was what was the confusion. When you're just looking at this one, leaving mobile home in there, I don't believe is an administration issue for us at all.
Okay, that's the issue we wanted to hear. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. You have a question, Assessor, Vice Chair Oakley?
I do, thank you. And so what you just said, I get what you're saying. So the mobile home, and then it's a different owner. And we have addressed that in our 18 bills that we've done. But we don't have it in here, in this one. So adding as far as the associated improved land, didn't we do one where we said if the owner of the land occupies the home or something?
That was 203, I think, but I can't remember. And I don't think that horse is running anymore.
There was language in a bill that we could certainly find that addressed the issue when you talk about associated land and you're using a definition of residential property to include a mobile home, that include the associated land if the land was held in the same owner as the mobile home. Then you would be considering the land that it's sitting on. And there was language out there, and I also don't remember which bill it was, but we could certainly find that. And that would tie the two together, if that's what you're attempting to do.
All right, last follow-up here.
So that would be helpful as far as this, as far as the administration, to qualify the associated improved land in that manner. That makes it clear for.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, yes, we could do that, and that would make it very clear that only the associated land that's in the same name as the mobile home. Or
Okay.
as the structure, actually, because it was worded, so whatever name the structure's in,
right.
the land has to be in the same name.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
so,
that
yeah.
language is in House Bill 3.
And it's in House Bill 3 too, great. Okay, just back on this amendment. So, back on this amendment. Representative Story, okay, back on this amendment. This amendment does not include land. Does not, right? Is that how I read that in paragraph A, 8 through 12?
Well, in two,
Or we,
it does.
or, okay, that's a delete. That's a delete and insert. So Roman 2, you include the land.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the amendment follows what HB 45 does, which is it's just residential structure for 2024, and then it includes the land in 2025.
Okay. So this is 2025. Because 24 up on A does not include the land. Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Is everybody clear of that? So 2024 is that paragraph A, paragraph B is 2025. Okay. Very good. We're on this amendment. Okay, got it, thanks.
And, Mr. Chairman,
Perfect. Okay, so let's finish up this amendment. Representative Storer, bring us home on this.
thank you, sir. So LSO wrote this amendment based on the engrossed bill before we made the amendments yesterday, but I attempted to, I think, incorporate those amendments in this amendment. I know that's a little confusing, but why don't we walk through the amendment and then we'll see whether we missed anything from yesterday's
I
discussion.
think we're pretty clear. Are you guys, do you need to walk through the amendment, or are we pretty clear what we're getting down? We're gonna finish this in 24 minutes. I think we understand the amendment. Now, we just got the fiscal note on it, is 146 million. Is that correct? The fiscal note's 146 million?
It's actually what I think is because it, on the back side, didn't quite get printed right, is the
Okay,
calculation. Again, this is an estimate, and I'll have something
okay,
a little
gotcha.
closer later today, but it's based on the residential structure only, and that's how I came up with what is an estimated fiscal note of 109 million. So that assumes this, the calculation we don't know is, statewide as well as mostly in Teton County, how much property tax is represented by homes that are $3 million or more. So I took a stab at that. We'll have some numbers later today, and we could talk about
Okay.
that on the floor.
Maybe, and if you wanna, depending on what happens here, kick it out to the floor, and you'll have
Right.
any more attempts to sell us. Okay, bringing this home here, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, I think I know the answer, but just 3 million, you just chose that. I mean, I'm just wondering what if we took that down to 2, what that would do.
Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair. The concept was, it certainly could be something else. The idea was to give enough relief to people at the higher end while also balancing out what folks were getting on the lower end. And to be able to allow, a lot of our residents, I'd say that the 3 million does represent just 30% of homeowners in Teton County. So we were trying to find the mean, but finding the mean is a little bit difficult. So it represents really those high value homes that include a lot of second homes in Teton County. So that's how we chose it, but they still would get a $4,000 exemption that I think is not nothing.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm just catching up. I think I missed something. So yesterday, did we amend out the land? And in this particular amendment, then this leaves the land out in 24, but it's amended back in 25. Are those statements all accurate?
I believe so, yeah. I think that's correct, Representative Locke.
Mr.
Representative
Chairman,
Storer?
yes, that's correct. It's also because 54 did apply just to primary owner occupied originally, but because we wanted to make it work for 2024 for this year, we had to take that out. So then we limited it just to residential structure for 2024, so it could work for this year. But it applies more broadly.
Any other discussion from Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this has been moved, so if I have to
It
bring it.
has. It's moved
Okay,
and
then,
seconded.
so this is for discussion, and maybe I'll bring another one. I'm thinking, sorry, Teton County, but I'm thinking of bringing that down to 1.5. I think
So
that catches.
25% and 1.5, is that amendment to the amendment?
That's what I'm saying it would be. So I don't
Okay.
know.
Or is that a friendly amendment? Okay, so
It would limit the,
an amendment to the amendment. Okay, is there a second on that? Amendment to the amendment,
1.5.
bringing it down to 1.5.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Okay, so an amendment to the amendment would change that 3 million to 1.5 million. Okay, I think we're all pretty square on this. Any discussion? Okay, Representative Byron?
Quick comment, I appreciate that, don't know where I'm gonna land on this, but I would say that, remember, and it's tough for me to talk about this, but remember, there are folks up there that and not just Teton County, in Lincoln County, Park County, many counties that bought for well under $1 million and are well over $3 million now in 5 years. And it doesn't, that's my resistance to this. I understand the direction it's going, but at the end of the day, that's just what the market has done. So I think that needs to be considered as you vote for this amendment to the amendment.
Okay, and the effect of that, what would that look like? Is that
Mr. Chairman.
it would freeze that at about a,
2.4.
yeah,
2,500 across.
2,500, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Representative Store,
That's correct. And in Teton County, that would be closer to 2,000.
2,000, yeah. And this isn't the only program out there, of course. You know, we've got the refund program, we got the county refund program where, and if you qualify for both those, you don't actually pay any taxes. So, go ahead, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One real quick note too, just remember in 2024, we're talking about the structure only. So when you cut this to 1.5, that's a big deal, all right? I'm sorry, I'm just a advocate of the bigger number, so.
Amendment to the amendment. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? No. I think that's been adopted. Chairs in doubt. Raise. I think it's been adopted, though. Let's, all those who are in favor, raise your hand. This is the amendment to the amendment, 1.5 million. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2. All those opposed? 1 to 3, 4, 5, 6.
How's that hearing?
Pretty good, actually. Okay, so that amendment to the amendment has failed. We're back on the main amendment. Any
Question?
question being called? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's been adopted.
County.
Okay, Representative Vice Chair Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment to add to the associated improved land that we add the.
Line are you on?
Sorry, I'm on lines 26 and 7.
And this is on the amendment, that blue sheet that you have.
Correct. So the associated improved land, my motion is to, I believe we heard it's House Bill 3, but that we dealt with this language that adds with the associated improved land, if the land is owned by the
land's owned by the homeowner.
homeowner.
Yeah, they'll clean it up,
Yeah.
but we know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. Okay, so this will match similar bills okay, any discussion?
I do have a question, Mr. Speaker, or I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So what happens to the ranch? The guy with the ranch has 3 or 4, 5 houses, 3, 4, 5 houses on it. Does that make it just for one then? Or does that become inclusive of all?
How many of these exemptions can you qualify for? is what
Correct.
you're- Yeah. I don't know that we know. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Representative Store.
I might be wrong, but I think the language that was in HB3 had to do with ownership because we were articulating primary ownership. And so then we had that whole list of what qualifies as primary ownership and when it works and when it doesn't, and when you can transfer and whatnot. And I don't think that applies to this bill because we're giving it to everybody. So we don't really have to define ownership.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that amendment has not been adopted. Okay. How about Vice Chair Oakley?
I know how this is gonna go, but I'm gonna, then my motion is to take out, adding the associated improved land for the second year.
So you just make it the same program for 2 years?
Yes.
Basically. Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. I think that makes it easy and clear. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
So it would be striking the language from the amendment on lines 25, starting with word beginning in the text, 2025, and then we start, and then from there, clear down through lines through 34, where we add in the associated improved land. It would take that out for this limited time program.
Okay, discussion on this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're deleting line, half of line 25, 26, 27, and then is there anything else?
Clear through 33.
All the way through 30?
Yeah, that Roman 2, all that associated, yeah, perfect. So you guys, we're good? Okay, now discussion, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on and against the amendment. We need to put some relief, get some relief out to the people. And I think cutting the land out of it's just another one of those cuts to the relief to the folks. So I'm against the amendment.
Representative Locke, just a question though. I mean, just thinking about what this bill does, it's 25% of the fair market value up to, and we've got 3 million in here. So what do you, I mean, how big a deal do you think taking the land out? For the average house minus Teton is 300,000, a little under 300,000 across the state. So
Thank you, Mr.
how does that change things?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's probably, the estimates I've seen are, the property is on the average between 27 and 30%. And I realize that's not a big number, but I'm telling you, to some of these people that are hurting, it's relief. And so I'm sorry, but I push hard. I'm actually not
So,
sorry. I'm
Just
a
talk
strong
numbers.
advocate of
So
that.
that 300,000 house, and you're saying, so if a third of it is land, so then you're at, so 25% to a third is land on the average that we're talking about on that $300,000 average house in Wyoming. So wouldn't so how does that affect that? What's gonna be the difference? I mean, 25% of that third, what is that, I guess? I'm just trying to think of the number, what that deals.
If it's 300,000, you add a third of it, it goes up to 400,000.
No, I mean, a $300,000 residence of that, the land value is in that. That's what I'm saying. So a third of that. So about a third is 100,000. So 25% of that, 25,000 be exempt times 9.5 times 0.68, which is about, so it'd be about $210, $200 is what you're talking about by leaving the land. And okay, just so we kind of know what we're talking about on the, okay, good. Representative Bear.
Well, I agree with Representative Locke in that regard from the taxpayer's perspective, but I also believe that this is going to affect the assessors, because when somebody receives their tax bill, they're going to be expecting relief on all of their property. They're not going to understand why certain parts of their property were excluded from the relief and others were. So they're going to end up in the assessor's office saying, why is this happening to me? I thought that my legislator passed relief, and here I have no relief in certain parts of my tax bill. So we're actually going to create a lot more time being spent by assessors dealing with their constituents that aren't happy than the time they would spend going through the work to include these pieces.
Okay, but just to be clear, that is not included in the 24 tax year, just because of the timing of this thing. So this amendment proposes to just make the second year like the first year that we're gonna see, just so we're clear on that. Okay. Okay, I'm working on our way down this end. Okay, Representative Stoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on and against the amendment, part of the thinking I had about creating the limit at the top end was so that we could include land in the second year and make that relief that much more meaningful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, sensing you're ready to vote. Although we're on the amendment, and everybody's clear on the amendment, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
No, we don't need to.
Okay, I think that motion failed.
we voted, can I, division?
Division being called. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand of that motion. 1, 2, 3, All those opposed? A little vote changing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, that motion has failed. Okay. Any other amendments to this little bill? Oh, the Senate's gonna, this will be a fun conference committee. Okay. Okay. Any other amendments, Representative Storr?
I just want to make sure everyone sees the second page of the amendment that does
Yeah.
have a $125 million. That was, again, just a guess, and hopefully we'll have a better number.
And that is a 1 year or 2 year
That's
number?
1 year, I believe. So it may need to be amended to be 2 years, so we can work on that.
Double that number.
Well, it wasn't the 300 number anymore, so.
Okay. You know, while we're still in the motion, just a discussion a little bit. And I'm just thinking back to House Bill 52. We passed that out as a 1 year program. And I just want to again talk about that because the 68th, you know, you got a 2 year thing going on. There's not the pressure to kind of keep working on it. And that 68th legislature then will be trying to solve this in a short session with a 2/3 supermajority vote to even talk about anything. A wholly undemocratic, unholy 2/3, which was not part of our original constitution. So I'm just wondering about maybe the thoughts on doing this as a 1 year program for $125 million out of the general fund. And then we come back and work on a real deal. So I just, people's thoughts on that, I guess, discussion or, I guess as a chairman, I don't like to make motions, but I'm gonna wait a little bit. Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm against cutting it to a 1 year program. I think the truth of the matter is we'll be right back here with the same argument with the assessors and the DOR on some of the complexities in 1 year, whereas if we give this 2 years, it gives us, it keeps it moving forward and gives us a little time to, because realistically, we're going to have some of the same issues that the representative next to me brought up, which is even with these outbuildings, they're going to become an issue. There's no question about that. Now, I know there's lots of other balls in the air concerning some of that. That being said, people, when they they think they're getting an exemption and they have an outbuilding, their entire garage is detached, these kinds of things are going to become major issues. So I think we need to start moving down the path of resolving those, and doing this in a 2 year at least gets the land included, it gets us moving in that direction, hopefully get some people some additional support, because I do think in the next interim and in the next year, like you said, in the next legislature, we've got to still have these things moving forward. I think cutting it to a year, I think, is not the right approach, but that's my
And then
2
how
cents.
about this appropriation? Anybody have any motions or,
I have a motion.
okay, Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion to make this 1 year. So we just, and so the appropriation, of course, goes into that, because what is represented here is an estimate of 1 year. So if using that estimate, this is a $250 million fiscal note, not 125. And then looking at the administration, that it changes, we've got it tiered from 1 year to the other. So I'm in favor of simply doing the 1 year, the simple administration, and recognizing the fiscal impact of that. So with that, that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, there is a second?
Second, I'll second.
Okay, second for discussion. I think we understand the issue. 1 year, 125 million. Any further discussion? Representative Storr?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My assessor just sent me a note that seems to indicate that the total tax paid in Teton County by households with fair market value over $3 million is 70% of our total tax paid. So in other words, that drops the fiscal note considerably, I think, when we do some math, just so you know.
You know, it's pretty amazing. I mean, not quite a third, but substantial amount of that 3%. that we were trying to exempt 97% of the homeowners. House Bill 203, you heard of that one?
Heard of it.
Okay, and, but about a third of that property tax is paid by that 3%. Not quite a third, but a big portion. It's an interesting statistic. Okay, so this, we have a motion on the table to make this 1 year. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? No. Show of hands, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? Oh, I think let me just do that again. I missed a hand. Let me just look. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. That motion has passed. Holy smokes. Okay. So this is a 1-year program for 125 million. Yeah, I vote last on those, so it's 5-4 is how that, okay?
Right, so what you want us to change is that on, page 2 of the amendment, line 12, or actually, line 13, we'll move that to 2025.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that will be, and then in the end, everything that, the like motion that I made before, where it'll take off beginning in tax year 2025, and from there on down will all be deleted as well. Because we've just eliminated the second tier of the program. And then there'll have to be some conforming language as well. So
So
line
it's-
25,
So to clarify, on page 1, line 25, starting with beginning in tax year 2025, that will be deleted.
correct,
Line 26 will be deleted, line 27 will be deleted. Then we go to page 2, sorry, more?
we won't need the definition of associated improved land, so clear down to 33,
All the way to 30, this 33 will be deleted.
correct?
Then we'll go to page 2, and on line 13, 2026 will be changed to 2025. Is that correct?
Correct,
And then on line 16, again, 2026 will be changed to 2025.
correct. Thank you, Lily.
Okay, so, thank you. Any other motions on this bill as amended? Okay, now, this will come to the floor, obviously, there'll be 3 attempts to, whether the standing committee amendment makes it or not, and then there'll be attempts, and then as the bill moves through the House, it passes the House, it'll certainly try to go to a conference committee with our colleagues down the floor, down the hall, I should say, and so, anyway, still a lot of work to do on this bill, so, and a lot more chances to keep improving it. Okay, any other amendments on the bill? Representative Bear?
No, not an amendment, just wanted to discuss the bill.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, before we.
I'll be vehemently opposed to this standing committee amendment on the floor. You know, looking at how this bill came to us, and you've mentioned how 203 would have applied to, well, it would have exempted 97% of homeowners from paying tax. This bill, as it came to us, would have exempted 46% for 1 year. And then the Senate had this application process, it would have reduced it and made it a much smaller exemption, I think, in the second year. I liked our work in removing that. Obviously, there was a big number, if we're gonna keep the subdivisions, political subdivisions whole, I think we were talking about 280 to 300 million per year. But you know what? We've received a great deal of influx of revenue, and so have those subdivisions at the expense of taxpayers. There's several of us tried many times on House Bill 45 to remove or go back, claw back, if you will, some of the taxes increases that people have experienced over the last couple of years. This bill would do that effectively by giving a major change. 46% of the people would not pay property tax for 2 years. So that's my standpoint. We've done some good work, but I think we've really gone the wrong direction on a lot of this in this amendment.
Anyone else want to talk or we're finished? I think too, and just repeat what I said, we're a long ways from the finish line. This is just part of the process. And I think, and that's that number I have in my head, 200,000, I always had in my head was about 40%. So somewhere in there. That was back to the 1 penny for 200,000. You remember remember that bill 203? And it went 1 penny, and that was about 39% exempt. So somewhere in there, you're correct. And so as we keep moving, we'll keep working through this. Okay, no other amendments. I think we're ready to vote on this bill as amended. Please take the roll, call vote. Thank you.
Representative Bear.
Aye.
Representative Byron.
Aye.
Representative Locke. Representative Northrup.
Aye.
Representative Oakley.
Aye.
Representative Storer.
Aye.
Representative Strzok.
Aye.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Harshman.
Aye.
The bill is a due pass with amendments and 9 aye votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Appreciate everyone's attendance today. Thank you all. Good work, committee. And we are adjourned.